So I wanted to start a video blog about my musical journey. And today I wanted to talk about my first band, which was the Auto Parts. And it was my first foray into doing what I really wanted to do. And so I don't think that people really knew that this was the thing that I wanted to do. But how would you get into a band and play to a place where you get to play out and you're recording albums and you're doing all of playing shows and practicing all the time? Like, that doesn't just happen because you fall into it. That's something that you want really badly in your life, that you work towards. And so I had it. I got it. And but once I was in it, it wasn't like, oh, this is what I want to do, we got to keep doing it. But it was like, oh, we got to keep doing it. And I think that other members of the band, all of whom are still musicians except for one, and that person used to always say, I'm not a musician, and they're not. They don't play music today, and maybe they don't feel like they were. I mean, they were in the band, they wrote great songs, they played an instrument. It's a hard thing for people to want, I think. It's a scary thing for people to want and to admit that this is what they really want. And I didn't. So I didn't verbally wear my heart on my sleeve and tell it to everyone. It was just something that I continued to do. When the band broke up, I thought, by the time that band broke up, I was already 30, in my mid-30s, early to mid-30s. And there's this ageism in the music industry, music world, particularly here in Los Angeles, where it's kind of like, oh, you're gonna, if you want to play music, you have to be young, and blah, blah, blah. So at the time, I decided to not play music. I tried to focus on writing this memoir about the whole experience, titled Rock and Roll Night from Hell. But it ended up just being a journal of bitching. I was just kind of like bitching. It wasn't like a memoir. I'm not a good writer in that way. It's something that I need to cultivate, for sure. I do believe that we can, if we have a passion for something, cultivate it. So a couple years later, a year and a half later, maybe a little over a year later, our former, wow, that's thunder, can you hear it? Our former drummer asked me to play in his band. I was super excited, so of course I did it. And then I played in that band for 3 years, but it was actually very life-changing for me in the sense that I learned how to play. I bought a really nice guitar at that time. I learned how to play. I learned how to play in drop D, which really, really, in hindsight, helped my songwriting. But I wasn't writing music at all in that project. And in the first project, the Auto Parts, I did do a lot of writing in the Auto Parts. And so when I joined Sean's band, Black Flame 13, it was under the pretense that I would be co-writing a little bit. But when I wasn't, I started to lose motivation. But in hindsight, I learned a lot from that band. I learned a lot about playing heavy guitar and things like that. And I practiced a lot. And again, when that band sort of broke up 3 years later, so the first band lasted for about 4.5, 5 years. And then the second band was another 3 years. Again, I did the same thing because at that point I was 3 years older, and I'm in my mid to late 30s at that point. And I'm like, I'm done. It's too late for me. And I was like, it's time to hang up this hat. It's time, even though it was the only thing I ever wanted to do. And again, about another year and some change later, lo and behold, I locked myself into one of my rooms in my house. I have a house, and one of them was turned into an office with a nice rug, a little couch in there. So I went in there, shut the door. I was living with my partner at the time who had kids, and I went in there, shut the door, and I just started writing songs. And that was 2012, 7 years ago. Or no, that was 2011, 7.5 years ago. And I just started writing songs, and I have been writing songs ever since. So I didn't actually start writing songs till after I played in two bands. So I guess this is really about, like, if you really believe in something, you got to stick with it. And I think that I think that people didn't think I would stick with it. It wasn't something that I talked about. You know, I remember even going to a wedding, and someone asked me why I wasn't playing music anymore. I was just like too embarrassed to admit that that's the only thing I wanted to be doing. I just, for so long, I had no idea how to get into it. When I formed the Auto Parts with someone who called themselves a non-musician, you know, it was kind of like under that pretense, but it was like, no, I am a musician. I started playing piano at this age of 7, and I played classical piano for 8 years, and quit when I was 15. But by then I was, you know, a pretty good piano player. You know, I had been competing and things like that. Hated it though, because essentially you're playing covers. You're learning how to play piano by learning all of these composers, you know, Mozart, Bach, Chopin, and Tchaikovsky, and all of these great composers whose music I loved to play. But I remember my piano teacher used to always tell me, because I would just play it how I wanted to play it, you know. I just wanted it to sound great. And so it wasn't necessarily following line by line where all the rests are and the repeats and the crescendos. And my piano teacher always telling me, "Well, you should be a composer. Well, you should be a composer." And little did I know that that's what I've always wanted. That's what's been in my heart since I was really young. I didn't actually start writing lyrics, poetry, till I turned 15. So it was kind of an overlap. Like, I played piano till I was 15, and then I started writing poetry. And eventually those poems turned into songs. And now I write songs. That's all I write. Books and books and books of songs. I do write them on most of the time on the acoustic guitar and drop D. Because drop D, it makes it really easy for me to play chords. It's very similar to playing chords on a piano. It's arpeggiated. It's easy to arpeggiate. So I don't necessarily write a lot of songs on piano, but I do write a lot of piano parts, or I'll convert the song to a piano part. And so that's what I enjoy doing. And I've stuck with it. Now I've been writing songs on my own for 7.5 years. And Jared is my partner now. He joined my band in 2012 as a bass player, September 2012, and you know, traveled the world with me and moved to New York with me and all of these things to play music with me and to be with me as my partner. So we're currently working on some new music, and it's just a long process. It's taking very long. I'm in this program called Catch the Mune Music right now, and they write a lot of songs for sync, and I don't necessarily relate to a lot of that music, but I am trying to write better, more syncable, still with the feel that I like, but still a little bit more mainstream style, but still that's not, like, they write a lot of very poppy R&B type stuff that I'm not super into, radio hits. I could write a song like that if I wanted to, and I wrote a song a couple years ago for an animation series. It was very poppy and it was cute. I loved writing the lyrics, and the recognition, of course, was just profound. But it's something that I love to do, and I've never stopped. And I think this is really about, like, just sticking with it. I think that I've always sort of done it quietly. No one really knew that that's something that I really always wanted to do, and I have never stopped. So I know that I'm never going to stop I don't want to stop, at least, so knock on wood. I hope the thing doesn't prevent me from stopping. I will just always continue to write. It's my passion. I love it so much. So this is a video series I'm thinking about doing. We'll see if I stick with it or not, but yeah. So that's it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.